Ahoy Rovers! Well, in this episode, I'm going to be creating a support for the stem. Now, this is going to seem like an awful lot of work because it's a temporary support, but it's really important because it determines the actual shape of the bough. And as an added bonus, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you an update with some very good news concerning the building plans. I think you're going to enjoy it. Anyway, there's a lot to do. Time to crack on. All right, so I have set up this particular piece of wood. It's just all temporary. I went into a little bit of effort to set it up, but the reason is it's to develop the angle of the bough and where it is. I've put a lot of thought into this, and when you see it, you're going to say, well, that was incredibly simple, but it's the simplest way I can think of to develop that angle. Anyway, just follow along with what I'm going to do here. Now, step one is to establish the water line again. So in this case, I'm using the laser level that you would have seen me use in the previous episode. Now, step two is indicate where the bough actually touches the water line. You'll find all this information clearly indicated on the construction diagram. So what I'm trying to do now is establish the correct angle and height to set the stem piece. So I'm not actually going to put the stem on right now. I'm just going to put a support that will be behind the stem to support it. Now, it's tricky because it doesn't just start at the bottom and it doesn't just end at the top. So I've established the water line, re-established the water line using the laser level. I've established what is the end of the bough, and I've established the distance back from what is the stem at the water line. So with all these measurements, I can, my drawing tells me the distance from here to what is the shear. So from this, I'll be able to develop all those angles, then I can set a piece up. It sounds complicated, but this is really an interesting way, a very simple way of doing it. Anyway, let me just crack on with the whole thing and it'll all make a lot more, it'll be a lot easier to understand. All right. So what we're looking at right here is the shear line. And the straight edge, the piece of plywood there, is clamped onto my board, and that's indicating the leading edge of the stem. And then the laser is indicating the water line, and it's intersecting that plumb line, the pencil line, right at the point where the stem will enter the water. So what we're looking at here is the stem, the top of the stem, where the shear meets the bough. And this line right here, it's been set back 1.25 inches from the actual length of the boat. That's because the whole boat has been set back on account of the way we've set up the frames. So we've made a measurement to here for all the frames, and then we add 1/2 inch spacer and 3/4 inch of frame. So if we were at the transom right now, the transom would start right there. So that's why these marks don't indicate really anything. They're just 1.25 inches ahead of where the edge of the frame is. And that's why up here at the bow, this is the arbitrary end of the boat, and 1.25 inches back is our setback, which lines up with this line, which intersects with where our bow is. Now, the stem is made out of a piece of spruce that will be 1.5 inches thick. So perpendicular to this line right here will is 1.5 inches. So this line, this secondary line, this one that runs right up and intersects our water line right here, This is where we're going to put our temporary support. It'll be a 2x4 on edge, and then when I make the stem, I can just attach the stem directly to that temporary support. Sounds complicated, but really this is dead easy. You'll see it as I develop it a little bit further. Now, using the lines that I just lofted onto that piece of OSB, I'm now attaching this 2x6 and I'm adjusting it so that it is exactly following that sloped line that I just developed. Now, I'm happy that the 2x6 is exactly where I want it, following that sloped line, which is 1.5 inches set back from the leading edge of the stem. And now I'm just going to secure it to that board temporarily until I can brace it. So now we have an edge that is temporary against a temporary support, but once I remove these and brace this, then we will have something that I can put the actual stem on. And the stem comes to this line 1.5 inches forward of this temporary piece. Now it's a matter of bracing the 2x6 so that it can support the stem both against itself and also side to side. Okay, pretty good. That's it. This board that I'm putting on, this 1x4, its job is to give some lateral support to the stem support. Now that the 2x6 has been supported in all ways, I can now dismantle the whole miniature lofting surface that I had set up. So now we're looking at the temporary scaffold, if you will, for what is the stem piece. And this piece of wood I have in my hand, although it's not the stem, it's the same thickness of as the stem will be. So you can kind of see what would happen. And it'll be trimmed off at the water line, and it'll be shaped, of course. And we'll be doing that in the next episode. But right now, these braces that we've just put on, that keeps the stem temporary brace in place. And then I've got a brace running this way to keep it at the right rake for the boat. Seemed like a lot of work, but really it didn't take that long. And frankly, I think this is probably the easiest way you can develop this angle and get all the measurements accurate. Well, Rovers, before everybody turns this episode off so that they can write a comment, subscribe, or give me a thumbs up, I promised you an update on the building plans. So here it goes. Well, Andy and I have been working very hard on the plans. And in fact, every morning we probably talk for about half an hour discussing one issue or another with the build. Anyway, those plans look like they may in fact be ready for sale by the 1st of November, about 4 weeks earlier than what we thought. Now, about price, well, we've haggled that back and forth between ourselves, and we've come up with what I think is a pretty fair price, and that is it's going to be $500 US for the plans. However, for the first 3 months, we will have an introductory offer of $450. And that's for to encourage people who are going to do this build and get ready for the Joshua Challenge in summer of 2023. We want you to get started just as soon as possible so you can have a boat that you can practice with and sail and then be ready to cross the ocean the summer of 2023. It's an honor to add a new name to the Benefactors bulkhead, Ganondorra Ocean Racing. Now, the names on the Benefactors bulkhead have made a donation of $100 US or more, and their names will be written on a bulkhead inside Wave Rover and will accompany us on our circumnavigation. Now, these donations make a huge difference in offsetting the cost of material for the Wave Rover project. So, thank you very, very much. I'd also like to take a minute to thank all the patrons of Wave Rover, the helpers, the riggers, and the shipping magnates. Your pledges of support help the channel in so many ways. Thank you. Well, Rovers, in the next video, it's all about shaping the actual stem piece that we'll be attaching, that will be a permanent part of the whole Wave Rover 650 structure. So until next time, thanks for watching.